a stage actor, Confederate sympathizer, and violent man with delusions of grandeur. Here is a brief biography of John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth was born the illegitimate son of English immigrant Junius Booth Sr. and his mistress Mary Ann Holmes in a four-room cabin in Bel Air, Maryland. Booth was named after John Wilkes, a radical English politician and journalist. Booth was born into the then prominent Booth theatrical family. Booth's father and brothers were all actors of some acclaim. In fact, Booth's brother Edwin, and indeed Booth himself, had been called geniuses at stage acting. John Wilkes Booth was a popular and athletic youth, although he has been said to have been a very uninterested student. At age 14, Booth had an encounter with a gypsy fortune-teller that was said to have had a profound effect on him for the rest of his life. This fortune-teller told him that he would die young, meet a bad fate, but that his short life would be grand. Booth left school at 14 around the time of the death of his father. It was around this time that he became politically active for the first time. At 16, Booth was a delegate for the Know-Nothings, an anti-immigrant political party. Booth chose to enter the family business and had his first stage role at 17. Despite some early setbacks, Booth eventually gained great acclaim and fame as a stage actor. Booth was strongly opposed to the abolition of slavery. Booth and many of his contemporaries considered the peculiar institution a benefit for both races. This positive good view of slavery harkens back to the John C. Calhouns of his time. In fact, Booth was present at the public hanging of John Brown, the famous writer and abolitionist leader. Though opposed to Brown's politics, Booth was said to have admired the bravery that Brown showed as he was led to the gallows. During the American Civil War, Booth's pro-Confederate leanings got him into trouble more than once. In fact, his brother Edwin, also a famous actor of some acclaim, was a Unionist, and the strife this caused within Booth's family was never resolved within his lifetime. To be a student of theater in Booth's time was also to be a student of history. Many of the characters in the plays that he acted in were based upon historical figures who took dramatic actions in what they saw as the face of tyranny. John Wilkes Booth was certainly no Brutus slaying Caesar, but that did not stop him from beginning to plot. Booth's initial plan was to kidnap Lincoln. However, this became possible once General Lee's army fell at Appomattox. The plan took many forms. However, one fateful night in Washington, Booth and his co-conspirators laid out the following plan, which included the assassination of the president. Booth's role was to assassinate President Lincoln at Ford's Theater. One of Booth's co-conspirators was to assassinate Vice President Andrew Johnson. However, an attempt on Vice President Johnson's life was never made. Secretary of State William Henry Seward was indeed shot that night by Booth conspirator Lewis Powell. However, he survived this attempt on his life. Booth and his co-conspirators hoped that the death of the top three leaders in the Union would galvanize the remaining Confederate forces and that they would continue to fight the war. In Booth's eyes, so long as Confederate forces still opposed Union forces, the war was not yet lost. On April 14, 1865, John Wilkes Booth entered the president's box at Ford Theater and shot Abraham Lincoln during a performance of Our American Cousin. While there are conflicting reports of what happened next, Booth is said to have jumped from the president's box onto the stage and shouted "Sic Semper Tyrannis," a line from Julius Caesar. Booth was able to escape the theater and Washington. John Wilkes Booth was on the run from federal troops for 12 days before being shot while holed up in a burning barn in Virginia. It is said that his last words were a request to tell his mother that he died for his country, and then looked upon his hands and uttered, "Useless, useless," before succumbing to his wounds. A question that I believe that still goes partially unanswered is why? What stirred such fervor in Booth? Why give up such a profitable career for death and infamy? I have a few ideas. Booth believed he would be remembered as a great Confederate hero, a grand liberator from the tyranny of the Union and Lincoln in the vein of Brutus. He was a zealot with delusions of grandeur, fighting to maintain one of the darker periods of our national identity. In the end, he was a fool and a murderer. This video was the first in a series of videos I plan on doing about famous assassins. I hope you found this and the series interesting. If you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and consider checking us out on Patreon. As always, thank you for watching.